So the first thing you need to think about when you're going to cook with fire is your fuel. The most common fuels for live fire are charcoal and wood. Often we like to start our fires at the restaurant with charcoal because it catches easier and we don't bring in kindling to the restaurant. So we light the charcoal, we let that heat up and get nice and hot, and then we put the wood on top of it. As far as wood goes, when you think about wood, you want to make sure that you have dry wood. Working with wet wood is just simply a pain in the ass. It takes a long time to catch, it smokes, it doesn't burn hot. You're adding more and more wood to try and build a bigger fire, and it's just sort of smoldering and never really gets to a point where you're happy with it, and it just takes longer. It becomes more of a chore than it should, and it should be a joy. So find a dry place. If you don't have a covered area, put a tarp around your wood, or cook with charcoal. The one wood you don't want to cook with is pine or anything that's really resinous. The resin will cook off and create a black smoke and really give an acrid taste to your food. And if you're cooking inside and you happen to have a wood burning oven or something like that, it'll gum up your flue and your ventilation pretty quickly. And since I do live pretty much out in the woods, far from your local corner bodega or anything like that, I order a lot of things online, and since I ordered a lot of things online, they come in boxes and packages with packing material. So I save that and I use that to start my fires. Simple, easy way to do it, something we all have. So just like on a Weber grill, you have the grate on the bottom that elevates your charcoal or your wood. You have dampers underneath, just as I have a damper on the column stand for this hemisphere. So open up the dampers and to allow maximum airflow, and put some paper underneath. This is a standard chimney that you can find in any hardware store for your charcoal. I use it because it holds the charcoal together, and it makes for easier lighting. If you'd like to use a little lighter fluid, go ahead and use lighter fluid. Just make sure that you've burned it off completely before you start cooking food. And lighter fluid certainly can be helpful if you only have wet wood or wet fuel. But today we have a beautiful day and relatively dry air, and this paper was inside, so it should be dry. So but once you know the charcoal's lit, you're just gonna have to stand here and wait. That's part of the deal too, is that cooking with fire requires a little bit of patience. It's not something that's immediate. It's not a gas grill. You turn it on and wait about 10 minutes for the grill to heat up, and you can just go cook away. You need a good, especially cooking with wood, you need at least 45 minutes to let your wood come to temp. We've started our fire. Our charcoal is getting red hot. We're about to dump it out. So to reiterate some of the points that we've discussed so far is, first of all, be patient. Don't dump the charcoal prematurely. Wait till it's hot. That way you'll really ensure that your wood will catch. If you dump it too soon, your charcoal may not be hot and it may go out, and you'll have to go through the whole process again. So be patient. Make sure your fire is hot. The second one is you have to be willing to be adaptable. You have to adapt to the situation, whatever it is, whether you have wet wood, whether you have dense wood, particularly large chunks of wood, small pieces of wood, whether the wind is really high that day, maybe the air is moist. There are all different factors that will come into play when cooking with wood and live fuel, and you're never sure exactly what wood you're going to get unless you're cutting it down yourself. So you have to adapt to your situation. One thing that's important when you think about how do I avoid panicking if something really crazy or unpredictable happens is try to be as prepared as possible. Know your surroundings. Know the dry spots, know space, know a spot. Like if you had to, in an emergency, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, but if you had to dump your grill and run, have a landing pad, have a spot for both flare-ups when your ingredient may start burning and you need to move your ingredient off the grill, or if something's happening with the fire itself and you need to dump some of the hot charcoal or hot wood out of your grill. Know your surroundings and know before your fire gets hot what you're going to do in the event of emergency, so you don't panic, so you know where things are going to go. So we're going to go ahead and dump this charcoal. Use the side towel or a hot pad of some sort. This handle does get hot. Red hot. So what we've seen is that this wood that I was drying out or just queuing up for the fire here has already started to catch. So it's obviously ready. Coals are very hot. So I'm just going to lay some wood across here, one on top of the other, creating areas, pockets of airflow as we build the fire. This is Boy Scouts 101. So as I am laying our logs on top of the hot charcoal, you can see they're already catching. Fire breathes. It requires oxygen to grow. So you don't want to throw logs stacked on top of each other without allowing for any airflow, or else it's just going to be harder for those logs to catch on fire. The fire won't get as hot, it won't move as quickly, and the idea is you want your fire to move quickly throughout all the logs you throw onto your piles so that you can get them going, and we can create a nice pile of hot embers. And we'll talk about bringing the fire down to embers in a second. Right now I'm going to continue to build this. Some people are real purists and they do not use lighter fluid at all, and they feel like it has some negative connotation. It's, you know, like everything's got to be this some sort of wholesome, you know, organic wood, organic firewood, and people have gotten out of control with the trends that they follow and sort of a misplaced understanding of those types of things in general as it relates to food in general. Lighter fluid helps, especially if you don't have charcoal and you don't have kindling and you just have wood. Use some lighter fluid. It's going to make your life easier. Use some paper and lighter fluid. The lighter fluid burns off. It burns off pretty quickly, and so people have this misconception if you use lighter fluid that it's going to make your food taste weird. Well, yeah, that's true. If your food is on the grill and you're squirting lighter fluid on the fire underneath your food, sure, it's going to make your food taste different. You know, you're going to get some of that burn off. But if I put lighter fluid on right now, it's not going to make any difference. It's going to burn right off. You want to see what would happen? I have lighter fluid. I mean, just because it's fun. See, it helps, right? I mean, that'll burn off in a matter of seconds. If you're going to use lighter fluid as a tool, we didn't really need it. We were just showing, you know, how it can obviously quickly increase the size of your flame, which is pretty groovy and it's fun to look at, and you know, it's a good party trick. The idea of using lighter fluid as a useful tool, it's at the beginning of making your fire, and you should saturate the wood with it. Let it soak into the wood a little bit before you light it, so it actually helps the wood catch fire. But like I said, it will burn off. If the difference is maybe between 10 to 15 seconds and a minute if you let it soak into the wood. And unless you are not grilling correctly, you're not going to cook your food a minute after the logs lights on fire. So right now, this fire is going strong, and I want these flames to simmer down a bit and the wood to, the first round of wood that is, to cook down into some nice embers. So while that's burning off and heating up our grill in preparation for cleaning, we're going to butcher our chicken and prepare it to go on the grill. There are two ways I like to grill chicken. One is called spatchcocking, where you just cut the back out and you open it up and you cook the whole chicken without its back. That's a great way. It's a fun way to cook chicken, but sometimes the result is the breast gets a little overcooked by the time the legs and thighs are ready. So for today's lesson, and in order to talk about different temperatures and moving different pieces of protein or about or around the grill to areas of higher temperature and lower temperature, we're going to take the chicken into multiple parts. So I'm going to cut off, there's a little bit of where the neck was, the neck fat. I'll just throw that on the grill. The chicken has a little bit of chili pepper left on it. It was in a brine for about 12 hours. A light brine. A brine is at its basis level, it's a salt solution. So there's salt and a little bit of chili, garlic, and some onions in this brine overnight. So I sort of pull in, I have my fingers on the breast here, and I pull in a little bit because you see the skin there. If I were to cut right there where the skin is, it might leave the breast somewhat exposed, and if I pull in, I'm guaranteed to sort of get more of the leg skin and keep that skin around and covering the breast here. So, and I flip the chicken over so I get that cut. I flip the chicken over, go around the back, cut right through. And then what you do is you pop the socket. So there's the thigh bone there, you pop it, and you can see it exposed. Once you pop it, then you can go right in, nice and smooth and easy, and cut off your thigh. So you have your leg and your thigh. And what we're going to do today is we're going to serve it sort of imagining we have a group of people so we can cut the leg and the thigh from each other. And that way you don't have to cut it once it's cooked, you can just serve it. And if you want to get really fancy, what you can do is we can take this and actually French it. So we're cutting off the little nub at the end of the drumstick so that when it cooks, the skin will shrink back a little bit and expose the bone and be more sort of like a lollipop, which is completely unnecessary, but still a little bit of fun. So we can leave it like that. So we have our leg and our wings, and we have our thigh. Always cooking it with the bone in. This is grilling outdoors. You know, if somebody doesn't want a bone in their thigh, they don't get a thigh. So I always have side towels around. This chicken came out of brine, and I did dry it off with some paper towels, but it's still a little bit wet. You don't want it sliding around your butcher block or your cutting board. So, and if you find that it is, an easy enough thing to do is sort of just fold up your side towel and you can cut your chicken right on top of the side towel, just like that. So again, I'm going to pull in that skin from the leg a little bit, right? And flip it over. I don't have the... This is a perfect example of a home knife. This is not my restaurant knife. This is a home knife, which is about as sharp as most people's home knives. So, and I pop that up. All right, there's the thigh. Just run it right along, and you sort of run your knife right along the backbone. You cut right in between where the bone popped right out of its socket, right out of the hip bone, right there. Again, where you cut the leg from the thigh, it's another nice little lesson. You can see the fat. The fat sort of, it's like, it gives you a little line at which to cut. So it's sort of, you know, just like a perforated line. You just sort of, just follow that, and you'll cut right through. You don't need to bang, knock, hammer, cleave. It just cuts right through. It's right at the joint. We have our thigh again, bone in. We go to breasts. So I cut right in here to cut off the back, okay? And I'm going to cut off the whole back. And you can see I'm using two knives. One is more of a slicer, and this is a boning knife. You could also use a cleaver or any knife from home. I just sort of use this for harder work, for cutting into any bone. So I'm cutting off the whole back, and I'm cutting through the rib cage here. And I'm going to grill, because I like to eat the back. That to me is one of the best parts to snack on. So I'm going to cut through the whole back here. Do that, and then cut the rib cage again, right through. And stick my knife out through there. Make sure I'm in the right spot. All that good stuff. And I'm basically cutting right through the wishbone. So I've got an entire back now. I've got this whole chicken back, which is a piece that a lot of people when they're cooking at home, they forget about. And I could trim off some of the fat, you know, but this has all this good meat, you know, right around the neck too. And it's great for picking. And like I think I said earlier, you know, that part by the bone is the most tender and the most flavorful. And, you know, as a cook, and all my colleagues would agree, you know, that's the best part to eat, you know, and eating something on the bone is always preferable to eating something that's been filleted, and which will otherwise be dry and relatively flavorless, and, you know, relative to the alternative. So now we're left with our breasts, and we have plenty of skin covering them, so they'll be protected when we cook them. The breast is the part we have to watch the most because it's the easiest to overcook. It's easiest to turn into something dry and sawdust-like as opposed to tender and moist, and wonderful, which breast can be and generally is if you're cooking it properly. So we have the wishbone, and I leave the bone in when I cut up chicken, just because, like I said, the more bone, the better as far as I'm concerned. I'm exposing less flesh to flame. The bone, if once you cut into a bone or pull out a bone, you're opening up the chicken or whatever protein it is to the heat, and it's just, it'll end up drying out. Or even if you watch it and protect it and manage and make sure that it doesn't dry out, it's more prone to drying out. So you're giving yourself an advantage by not taking out the bone. That is, if you don't mind eating around bones. There is a breastplate in there, which I go right into and I cut right through. So again, it's good to have, if you have a knife that you do more delicate work with, don't use it when you're cutting through the bones. Use a more durable knife, a knife you're not as concerned about. If you have a veg knife, a knife you like to use for fine cuts, don't use that when you're cutting up you're cutting through the bone of the chicken or anything else for that matter when you're preparing it. So then we'll just follow that cut right through the end of the breastplate. And I have to hold my hand over it just to stabilize. All right. And cut right through. Oop. Sometimes get in there. Don't forget the skin. So then we can trim it up a little bit. There's maybe a little excess skin. I happen to like the skin a lot, so I never consider skin excess. There is rib cage over here. It doesn't have that much meat attached, and I can actually cut that out because it's not super flavorful. Now, we are not cooking stock today, but I always save these pieces for stock. So you should do the same thing at home. Actually, after you eat your chicken, your grilled chicken, you save your bones. What I do at home, Jory and I, we save our bones and we throw them all into the stock pot. We make stock out of the bones from the chicken that we just ate, and it still gives off flavor. And there's no reason not to use and maximize the use of the bird. You're paying for it. The bird lived and died for your pleasure, so maximize your pleasure. It's honoring the bird. What we're going to do is I'm going to grab a bowl and we're going to oil up the chicken and hit it with some salt, pepper, and some garlic. We're going to do a little bit of a paste with oil and garlic and some vinegar, and we're going to use that as a mop that we're going to brush on the chicken as we cook it, or spoon on the chicken as we cook it. We have our breasts, we have our wings, we have the back with the neck going forward. We have the thighs. We have the legs. So we've cut it all up, and all these pieces are edible, and we're going to throw them all on the grill. If you feel like getting intimate with your food and understanding it and starting to understand the anatomy, it'll help you cook the chicken. It'll help you understand the different textures and the different colors of the meat. It gives you a relationship that you don't have if you're buying something that's already boneless, already cut up, and it's just going to make you a better cook at the end. So we're going to cut this chicken up. We're going to cut it up in a style we call spatchcocking, which is essentially just taking out the back of the chicken and then folding everything forward so the legs and the thighs and the breasts are all on the same side, and you're cooking the skin side of the chicken and the back side of the chicken, but you're cooking the skin side, all skin side at the same time, all together as one piece. So again, I'm going to take off the excess neck fat and throw it on the grill. And we have our neck from the previous chicken that was cooking. It looks pretty good. And as I had mentioned before, I use a slightly heavier duty knife. This is a boning knife. When I cut through bone, you can also use a cleaver for this, or for that matter, you can use strong scissors if you have strong scissors. So you can cut right down the back. We cut down one side of the neck, use the neck as your guide, and cut down the other side. You can see that's the neck right there. I can do it this way so you can actually see. And you cut down the other side of the neck. Pretty simple, pretty basic. And I've got just this wishbone right here that I have to cut through. So when you're cutting through any bone, don't do it how I was doing it before, which was cutting like this. Don't try and saw through a bone. Get yourself a piece of real estate on your cutting board and press down and crunch through it. So the bits and pieces you can see coming out of the chicken here are a little bit of liver that wasn't cleaned out of the chicken when it was processed, which is just fine because liver is delicious. But we'll clean that out before we cook it. So you heard that. I just pulled the breasts apart a little bit right at the top of the breastbone, and you can see that it opened up the skin right where the breastplate is. You can see that everything here is opened up completely. And if you turn it over, you have this bird that is ready to go on the grill. And what's really nice about this in terms of grilling is that you only manage one big piece of protein. You're not managing a bunch of smaller pieces of protein, moving them around. You might not get as much difference in terms of the cook time on the breast and you know, than when you cook the breast separate from the leg and the thigh. So we may have to cook the breast a little bit harder. They may be a little more cooked through, and normally I like to cook breasts slightly pink almost, because I know where the chicken comes from and I'm not worried about the dangers that sometimes may be concerning. So these may have to cook all the way through before the thighs and legs get cooked, but it's really fun, it's really easy. We'll lay it right down on the grill, press it down. You know, you can even drop a brick on it, or even a stone or something like that, whatever you have around the house, and to help flatten it and cook it as it goes. Or you can just leave it as is and cook it that way. And so we'll start it on the skin side, and then we'll flip it over and we'll cook the back as well to get the radiant heat through the rest of the chicken. You can hear in the background our neck fat popping on the grill, which is cool. We'll also cook the back as well because, like I said before, the back is great for nibbling. I think that spatchcocking is a great way to cook chicken if you're cooking a bunch of chicken, you know, and you have a bunch of people coming over and you don't want to manage a whole variety of pieces. You have a few spatchcock chickens, you can lay them on the grill, you can let them go, and you're flipping fewer things, you're managing fewer variables. It's also, I think a lot of people like the drama of it. They love seeing a whole chicken come off the grill. So it's a fun way, it's a fun presentation as well. So I'm snacking on my grilled chicken neck. Yum. And the chicken's on the grill. So what we're going to do is make a little bit of a sauce, sort of a mop for the chicken. Once it's further along, we're going to brush this on the chicken, this mop or this vinaigrette, once it's through. So we have some garlic. This is what's cool about this garlic, is that we grew the garlic. We grow garlic every year. For the restaurant, we plant it in October, and it comes up in July. And we pull it out of the ground, and we clean it, and we cure it. We cure it in the barn, and we dry it. So we have this nice firm garlic that I'm just crushing on the table here, and just to peel the skin off. I'm not worried about it falling apart. I'm not going to slice it in any pretty fashion. I'm going to just mash it in the mortar and pestle. Cooking outdoors, cooking over fire, you know, you're outside, you don't have your blender and your Cuisinart, your VitaPrep, etc., is readily available to you. It's nice to use something that, you know, sort of mirrors the primitive beauty of a wood-fired grill, and that's the mortar and pestle. It's something I've been fond with for most of my life, and I'll continue to use. It also, the way you mash things up, talking before about having the connected quality to your food, this again, it's sort of, you get to understand the ingredients, and you're more attuned to the measurements, the quantities you're throwing into your mortar and pestle, and you're mashing it, and rather than just throwing things into a VitaPrep or, you know, some kind of blender and pureeing them, this is a little more intimate. It also gives you a more textured sauce. So you notice I have this big stone mortar and pestle. Stone is great for grinding and making sauces. Smooth marble is good for pills, and wood is good for light salads. Well, anytime I use a mortar and pestle, or at least a heavy one, even if it's on a wood surface, but particularly if it's on a marble surface or a soapstone surface or something like that. I put a towel underneath. It just dampens the noise and also softens the blow on whatever surface you're working on. So start out, sometimes I'll take a little bit of salt, throw it into the mortar and pestle to start, because it'll help add a little friction, especially if you have something slippery, like chilies. Chili skin is pretty slick. So I'm just gonna knock this around. The smell of garlic. Okay, so we'll take some oregano flowers. Just pull some oregano right off here. And I just picked this from the garden moments ago, literally. It's not a made-for-TV comment. It's fresh and a little bit spicy. Really nice. My fingers are a little sticky from the garlic. So then I'm going to put in some olive oil. And we'll add the vinegar. This is a red wine vinegar that Jory made with our red wine scraps from the restaurant. So wine that we sell by the glass. If it went off, if it wasn't a particularly good wine, whatever's left at the end of the week, we bring home. We have this nice sort of chunky emulsified vinaigrette, which is really cool. It's very simple. You know, it's just using really good ingredients. A few simple ingredients, our homemade vinegar. And you can use good store-bought red wine vinegar, good olive oil, some nice sea salt, garlic, and some fresh herbs. We used oregano. Our fire is nice and hot, and the first thing we're going to do is clean our grill off a little bit with this grill brush. Works a lot better when the grill is hot. All these little particles come right off, so they're all baked. So I'll just get it nice and clean. Right now I'm taking this tool and I'm adjusting the fire, sort of even it out among the whole area of the grill, so that it's sort of an even heat throughout. Since we have 2 chickens that we need to throw in the grill, we're going for a somewhat even heat. And if that proves to be a little too hot, we can adjust accordingly. So if I throw the chicken on and I realize, chicken, you're too hot, I'll pull it off and put it on this wooden board, which I have next to the bowl in which the chicken will be marinated. This is the raw chicken. So I have a raw chicken drop, and I have the cooked or partially cooked chicken landing pad. So the first thing I'm going to do is oil this brine chicken. I'm going to toss it all around in the bowl so that all sides get oiled. Tossing our chicken in olive oil here. We could salt and pepper first, but I find pepper or any sort of chili or something like that, which we'll add later on, works best a little later. The pepper will lose flavor as you cook it, or just burn in the grill from the heat of the grill. So easier to just add the salt and the oil, get the chicken on, let it cook, and then we can add our seasoning at a later stage. And that's what the vinaigrette that we'll make is for. And I'm going to feel, it's definitely hotter over there. And so I'm going to throw the chicken on so that the legs are toward the hot side and the breast is on the cooler side. Because the legs can take higher heat, and need more time to cook, and the breast needs less time to cook. Backs can go on higher heat. And we have our individual breasts, and the breasts will go with lower heat over here. Wings can take high heat. Legs can take high heat. And so can thighs. You can hear the fire, you know it's cranking, right? So that means we'll probably have to check the items that are closer to the high heat area of the fire, which is this area. We're gonna have to check those sooner than later and just see how fast they're going, how black the skin is getting, or hopefully not black, but brown, that is. And just pay attention to it, you know, but you can hear, that's just the listening phase, right? You can hear, you can see the flames coming up, but you can really hear the sizzling of the chicken. So I'm checking each cut just to give me an idea, and I have a pretty good sense that like the breast here is not even close, because it's not, yeah. The one thing that I could do though is I put the breasts on the wrong direction, which is a good thing to mention. The tip of the breast obviously cooks faster than the top part of the breast, and since it's hotter over there, I cook the breast with the fat part closer to the heat rather than the thin part. And so I just get a sense of how things are moving along. Things can go from golden brown to black and burnt pretty quickly. So you walk around your grill and you get a sense of where things are going, how fast they're going. As it goes, what I will do, for instance, is I may move the thighs even closer in, sort of concentrate the heat. And I may leave space elsewhere on the grill here for me to maybe grill some vegetables while this is going on. As we get closer, as the chicken comes a little closer to being ready, I'll be able to feel it and know if it's ready. Right now, I'm just letting it go to a point where I feel that the skin looks beautiful. And if the skin looks beautiful, which will hopefully take about 5 more minutes, so I know that it's getting a good amount of time on that side, I'll then flip the pieces of protein. And once I flip them, I'll try to move them to an area that's slightly less hot, and I'll consolidate all the protein in one area of the grill so that I can let the chicken cook a little more slowly and thoroughly and make sure that that initial sear and coloring, you know, wasn't too quick and didn't just cook the outside, but I'm cooking the food all the way to the bone. Certain signs, you know, when this protein starts to shrink, you can see already on the breast. If they go too fast, they'll just cook hard on the outside. The outside will be a little bit sort of dried out, and the inside will still be raw. And that's not what we're looking for. So in order to prevent that, one thing that we can start going about doing now, I see some flare coming up on this side, so I'm going to check, before we do this, I'm going to check my thigh here. Looking beautiful. Chicken looks great. But one thing I can do now, I think it's probably pretty safe to do, is to move some of this wood over and push a lot of the heat of the fire over to that side and ensure that this side here is at a more comfortable temperature. So I can hold my hand here and it's not super hot, but it is hot over there. So, you know, it's maybe right here, maybe it's 200 degrees or something along those lines on the grill, a little hotter, but over there it's ripping hot. And I can see all of my protein is already shrunk down. The thighs have tightened up, the legs have tightened up, and you'll be able to see when I turn this over, they've gotten some color, right? Really pretty color. We'll give them a couple more minutes on that side, maybe a minute or two, and then we'll turn them over and pull them back. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll cook, for example, having the chicken backs that are great nibbles, but you can also use them to elevate other pieces of protein. So if you have a chicken back cooking and something else needs to stay over the grill but doesn't need direct heat, you can place it on top of your chicken back and allow it to go slowly, nice and easy. As we get closer, and we're not there yet, and I'll talk to it to this point also when we do arrive at it, when I touch the chicken, I'll be able to feel it. Right now, I push in and it's pretty flabby still. And, you know, it responds with a little bit of elasticity, but it's certainly far from firm. When it's ready, it should feel firm to the touch. There should be no give in it whatsoever. And the breasts, you're a little bit in between. You want a little bit of give on the breast. Not a lot, but you want a little bit of give. You don't want the breasts to be too hot. And the breasts I would even turn over and start pulling back right now and cooking over here because I can see some protein coming out. The albumin coming out of the wing, just a touch of it. And you can see I'm pulling the tips further and further away. Really just going to let this coax this nice and easy, nice and mellow. And I think that I'm about at the point where I can probably flip the wings as well. Or I'll just do it with my fingers. Beautiful, huh? They're really getting a nice, crisp, golden brown. I'm going to move our legs actually back here because they've been going pretty hard, and they could probably take a little rest. This might be a good opportunity for me to show you why I built the grill the way that I did. If I can pull everything out, I don't have to stand over the fire. I can move things around, adjust them, and I'm not doing it directly over the fire, so I'm not making myself miserable and burning myself. And we can take our spatchcock chicken, take a look at it. Looking quite beautiful. We'll turn it around this way first before we go the other way, before we turn it over completely. And then we'll return our grill to its previous position. Our corn salad starts with grilled corn, but that's not the only thing we're going to use the grill to warm up. So this is a salad that can be served at room temperature. However, we're going to grill several items. We have chilies, all summer, super summery items, chilies, zucchini, and the almighty cherry tomato. What's cool, on top of the fact that we're using livers and hearts, on top of the fact that we're in the middle of summer and we have all this great product, is that we're going to grill the tomatoes. And grilling tomatoes like these, I've made the mistake several times of just dropping them on the grill and you lose like half of them. They burst and you lose all their water. And the water of the tomato is what's going to mix with olive oil, with good olive oil, is going to create the vinaigrette, the liquid for the vinaigrette for the salad. So I have a cast iron pan on the grill heating up to burst the tomatoes. So we're cooking all over the grill, but we're not going directly on the grill with these. So to note, when you're cooking something like a tomato, if you're using a pan on the grill, you really don't use your nice stainless steel or copper cookware. You're just going to it's going to get black, and if the grill is really hot, it's going to melt any of the welding, and you'll pop a rivet. Some of the handles are riveted into the pans. You'll pop a rivet if it's really hot. So now I'm going to take out my veg knife, and we're going to cut this garlic thin here. And this is home cooking, so we can be a little rustic. When I cook for myself, I'm not as fussy about whether my chunks of garlic are super small. When I'm cooking in the restaurant, cooking for the public, especially since I'm not cooking every dish and I have cooks doing it, and I have to instruct them to cook it, to cut it down to a very precise size. But here at home, it's like, hey man, it's just food. So I'm preparing all the vegetables right now to go on the grill. Zucchini is, there's an old adage, it's if you grow zucchini, you better have a lot of friends. It's because when you grow zucchini, it grows like crazy, and they grow quickly, and they grow to quite a large size. So I'm going to show two ways of doing the zucchini. One is I'm going to cube it now and cook it with the tomato. And the other way is we'll just set it on the grill and we'll get a little char on it. Okay, these can go in there. These can go over here. I'll get oil. I'll get salt. This is finishing salt here. This is a nice sort of reddish colored sea salt. You can see I'm pretty liberal with the oil. There's a good reason. Oil is delicious and it just transfers heat so wonderfully well. So we have all of our good veggies. We've got our liver and our hearts. Our garlic is in the bowl. And one thing, let me not forget to do, is cut some bread. I'm going to grab a bread knife and I'm going to cut some bread. We're going to have some grilled bread with our chicken too, because when you have a grill and you have fire going, if you have bread, just grill it. If there's bread in the house, just grill it, because the fire, as it dies, it's it's sort of like lost fuel, it's spent fuel. Bread is the thing you can put on after everything else is cooked, and it's just a delicious addition to any meal. So we're going to take this over to our grill. We're going to put this on as we look at our chicken and probably pull our chicken off while we're finishing this. Then our chicken will be allowed to rest. We'll finish our corn salad and we'll eat everything. So I have some of this fine sea salt by the grill that I was using for the chicken. You always salt from up high so you get a nice radius, right? You're not salting a specific part of the vegetable, but you're showering it with the salt. So the corn is going to go on just quickly and get a little char. This is something you can do while you're cooking the chicken if you are good at multitasking and you feel confident in your skills. It's also something that you can do before you cook the chicken. We have our chicken just finishing up, going nice and slow and sort of resting. So we're going to let that chicken rest and we're going to cook right around it. And now I've pulled most of the fire over to that side where we're doing the vegetables so that they have more heat in order to get a char. And as I said, you can hear it, that pan has been on there for the tomatoes that we're gonna get a little burst on. And I'll pour a little bit more oil over the corn, over the chilies, get that heat transference we look for. And then we will tend to the fire. And the last thing we will do is put the liver and heart on. Those take no time at all. So I just added another log to the fire. I'm okay with getting the heat nice and hot here. And even if one wanted to, as I may here, stick my pan right down there, right on top of the flame. So we'll let those go down there. Just really soften. Gives us even more room here. Get our zucchini, corn, and chilies nice and hot. And we got some color on our tomatoes here. That's all we want out of that. I'll just pour our tomatoes right in there with the garlic. We're about there on this. I don't want to cook these things too much. And you see here, our chicken, that's the skin. Our chicken is firm. When I touch this, it's firm, it's cooked. I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to take our vegetables and throw them in our bowl. Let them hang out for a sec. And then I'm going to cook our livers and our hearts. I think we're in a position where we can pull our chicken off. So as the livers are cooking, we'll pull our chicken off. That beautiful spatchcock chicken, right? Pull all these goodies off. Let that fire keep moving. We're going to pull our grilled vegetables out of the bowl, cut them up, toss them all together. The landing pad bowl for the vegetables that has all the oil in it, we'll rub our bread in that and we'll grill our bread up. So the corn we cooked on the grill just lightly. We're just cutting this lightly warmed corn. As I said, the corn is super fresh. It's the season, so there's no reason to cook it too hard. Squirting me, it's just so juicy. Yummy. It's a very simple way to cut the corn off the cob and put it right into the salad. And then we'll go ahead and we'll cut up our chilies and the rest of our zucchini. We've got a ton of flavor. So, chilies, we'll open them up. And we'll take out the seeds on the top, put that to compost, open them up. All right, just take out the top, some of the seeds. You don't have to be too fussy, again, about having some seeds. Seeds are good. It's just, you don't need to be eating all seeds, as they sometimes are not the best texture. tasty. Now, chilies, you can use, this is a Fresno chili. You can use Anaheim, you can use Serrano, you can use Cayenne, you can use whatever. If you like sweeter, use sweeter. Again, this is all to your liking. Ooh, that sun just came out. Yeah, delicious. So we're going to finish this with a little bit of tarragon. Pick a few tarragon leaves. Tarragon has that nice fresh anise flavor. Again, just a rough chop. Just a touch of the vinegar, of our house vinegar. The red wine vinegar. And I'll just toss it like this. To finish this salad, I like a little bit of sweetness sometimes in my salads, and so we make a little bit of honey. Just as I'm mashing down these tomatoes, creating some of that liquid, and finishing it with a little bit of good olive oil here. We have the chili in there, we have the vinegar in there, we have salt in there, we have tarragon, we have the livers, we have all this yummy stuff. Sometimes I'll also use maple syrup. So typically I'll use maple syrup and honey as the sweeteners in the kitchen if I want to balance out a dish. Got smoky flavors and sweet flavors, hot flavors. That's good. So as part of our finishing touch for our grilled lunch, it should be the finishing touch for every grilled meal. I'm just going to throw some bread on the grill. I'm going to drop it in the bowl of olive oil and salt here that we used with the vegetables. Pour some more on it. Sprinkle some more salt on it. Finish it with a little olive oil. The reason being is that you still have that heat. I think I mentioned this. You still have that heat going, and there's no reason you shouldn't have something cooking if you have the heat. I mean, that wood is valuable, and the heat is there, and there really isn't anything better than some good chicken and grilled bread, a little bit of salad, especially on a day as hot as today. Of course, a tall glass of cold wine, too. This is a couple days old, so it's perfect time to go on the grill. You save your old bread. What do you do with it? You toast it, or you put it on the grill, or you turn it into panzanella, to some kind of salad. So we'll let this go for a few minutes. I'll pull it off and bring it over there and go over to the table, cut up the chicken. We'll finish our chicken dish. We'll plate it. We'll serve it with the salad. At that point, the bread should be perfect. And we'll pull out the bread and we can have a meal. So we're going to plate our chicken two ways, which is great, and it is indicative of one of the components of grilling and the ways to approach grilling that I talked about earlier, which is be adaptable. We decided we cut up one chicken, and we decided let's cook the other chicken in a different manner and cut it a different way. So we have one in the style that's called spatchcocking, where we took the back off and we grilled it nice and slowly. And then we have our little pile of wings, which I did not eat, although I was tempted to. And we have our legs, my personal favorite, the thigh. And we've got some breasts here, cooked beautifully. You see how beautiful that is. The grain, the tight grain you can get, how tender that is. And you do that all on the grill, the super hot grill. And that's what you get when you pay attention. And when you listen to the grill, when you focus your energies, and you be patient with the grill, you can actually achieve a product from a very rudimentary and primitive heat source. You can achieve a really fine product, which is really hard to believe. And it still amazes me to this day that I can produce such a delicate result from something that's so intense. And then you've got the chef special, the thing that you never see coming out of the kitchen, because it usually goes into stock, or you have cooks cooking it, eating it. But speaking to that, one second while I grab the bread. So speaking to it being my house, me doing what I want, I think that's another good rule that we haven't talked about in terms of grilling. You know, we talked about patience, we talked about adaptability, we talked about not panicking. But what I didn't mention was that it's your grill. These classes are designed to teach you skills, to improve your cooking technique. And it's not designed to tell you what tastes right and what tastes wrong. That's for you to decide. And so you can play with the flavors, you can play with the temperatures, you can cook things longer or shorter. If you like really well done chicken, you can cook your chicken until it's really well done. That's your prerogative. If you prefer cooking with charcoal, cook with charcoal. So hopefully this class has inspired someone or some of you or a few of you to get outside and cook over some live fuel, to make a wood fire and make something beautiful, something simple or something complex, whatever it may be. But if it did inspire you, I'd love to see a photo or a video, a shot of even the fire itself or the finished product, or both would be super cool. And if you took away anything, whether it's just the idea of having patience while working with a fire, or maybe something more technique driven about how to manage the heat and move your items around the grill, listening to the fire and watching the items, looking at them to see how far they've come, touching them, feeling them, becoming intimate with what it is you're doing, which is cooking. If it's as complex as that, or as simple as just understanding the idea of patience or adaptability, if any of those are taken away, I'm going to feel extremely proud. I appreciate it. And if you do want to try some interesting food that's cooked over wood-fired grill and cooked in a wood-burning oven, and it's really focused on that primitive method of cooking, come see us at Fish and Game in Hudson, New York. I'm pretty much always there, unless I'm here. Thanks a lot.